Wow, more than sounds like qualified to master this book and bring it to full fruition. How many other folks are involved with this, and what's the process from Pyle, we love this book, to now you have to break the news. Here are the things I want to change.
Oh my God.
Oh, well, so two separate questions there. I would say I can answer the second one, and Sailaja would be a better fit to answer the first one. So sorry. So my job really in the editing process is very content focused. That's really where I focus my energy. So when I worked with Pyle, we worked very closely on getting everything where it needed to be from the story perspective. There was, typos and stuff too, but for the most part, it was very focused. Actually not typos. We had a separate person do that, now that I think about it. But we went through line by line on the phone more than once, I would say.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
We had 3 developmental edits. We had one, the first 2 were big picture, but the first one was big picture, where Amy had me, write and make a lot of changes, a lot of fantastic changes. But I remember after hanging up with her and, going through my list, I was just like, okay. I literally took, I think, a week off. I'm just like, I can't deal with this. This is like, wait, what? But that developmental edit, it was more, I think it added depth to the book that the book was lacking. And I think we did, and then it was a smaller round and then a smaller round, but that was all 3 content, like developmental. And then we did line edits and then we had betas, which then resulted in further big picture and small picture edits. Then there was copy editing.
Smaller one, mostly small.
Yeah,
it felt big.
It felt big at the time. I think when you're revising a book for the millionth time, you're like, no. So yeah, and I think in that sense, it follows a very traditional publishing route, like with the editorial process. Yeah,
that's a very good point, because I'd kind of forgotten about how many rounds we did. But so the thing to keep in mind with editing, and I think it's something that takes a long time for authors to get used to, is that the idea is never to change the voice of the writer. And it's really not focused on changing the story either. It's about making sure that you're getting the story to where it needs to be in order for the flow to work as well as it should. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, when you're reading a book, you should be so immersed in that book that you don't stumble over certain things, right? There are always stumbling blocks in everyone's writing, but there are things that will catch you out, things that make people say, wait, that doesn't seem quite right, or I'm not sure that character would say that, or things that make you dislike the character, right? Where we don't want people to dislike the character. So there's a lot of things that we went through when we were doing content edits that were focused on that. And one of the things that I found in working with Mango and Marigold is how often the books that we're working on have been whitewashed before we get them. So less true for you, Pyle, but pretty commonly you see books where the undertone or the experience of the author has actually been cut out or sort of covered with something that they think is going to be more accessible. So very often what we have to do is push out on getting that cultural experience back in the books, making sure that those books actually are reflecting something special. And in this case, it was much more about things like, one of them was the name of the world, right? Wasn't that one of the main things? Well, in one of our first conversations, it might have been our first conversation, poor Pyle. Yes. I asked her if she had Googled some of the names of the fantastical things. So as aspiring writers, a quick tip: when you make up new words, Google them. Always Google them, for 2 reasons. Number one, sometimes you think you made it up, but you didn't make it up, right? It's came from somewhere. So I think in Pyle, in your case, you pulled the term from the name of a flower.
Yes.
Right. But someone else had thought of the same thing.
Yes, Dungeons and Dragons, no less, I think it was. And I don't play video games. I know of the video game, but I didn't know that.
I don't think Dungeons and Dragons is a video game.
No, it's not. It's a role-playing game. but it was
Oh,
actually not
see?
Dungeons and Dragons. It was World of Warcraft.
It was
which
World
again-
of War. Oh yes, potato. In my world, that's potato. I just lost a few readers right now. Oops.
But yeah, so unfortunately, I think that was in our first conversation that we actually had about the book, was me asking you if you had Googled things, and you said no. And then I said, well, I Googled it. And it's, so now you have to go back.
And you have to change the name. And that was one of the hardest things I had to do. And she's like, don't worry, I've done this too in my life. And a lot of fantasy writers do this. And I was like, okay. So like, you know, it's like second skin to me, the name of that realm that I had to change now. It almost felt like Ria's gone someplace else entirely. Like what? And it was, I think, one of the very last changes I made. So I did all of the developmental changes. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to now just find another name and do a, you know, find and replace sort of thing so that it didn't throw me off. Like it was that difficult an edit to make. But I think I landed on a good one.
You picked a good name. Yeah. I can't even remember what it was.
Thank you.
Amaranth.
I know, but I'm not, Amaranth. Yeah. But this is also after a flower, the aster flower. So, you know, I kept my theme and I kept my A.
My heart breaks for you, Payal. That's a dark day. Have you Googled this? Because I have. Oh, ow.
I'm so sorry.
Good for you for getting up the next day and going on with it. It sounds like all's well that ends well, and you will never not Google a thing again.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
So that's the content part, right? So that's, I mean, and that was a full-time, that was a lot of work. Not because the book wasn't in great shape already. It's just building it into the place where it needed to be. And again, like, Payal is an incredible writer. So a lot of this wasn't about writing. It was about smoothing out certain places and asking questions that sometimes nobody wants to have asked. One of our beta readers, who's also one of my beta readers, would ask questions and we would be like, now we have to go back and fix this because somebody caught it, right? Like 3 or 4 people had already read it and not noticed. And now she's like, wait, didn't they walk through that door on the way in? No. Where's the door? Why can't they just walk back out the door? And you're like, no, now we have to fix this.
Yes. There was another point that you made, which will always stick with me. This is again in our first round, where Amy pointed out that, you know, since this is middle grade, I had to show a lot more sort of mental monologue of Ria to make a reader that may have not got the reasoning for a particular decision that she has taken in the book or an action that she's about to take and may not understand the internal conflict because I didn't expand on that. And so I remember she told me that whenever Ria makes a decision or she does something where she has to have a reaction to it, just write about it. Like, you know, let the reader know what she's thinking about. So I'm like throughout the book? She's like, throughout the book. And I'm just like, okay, like Ria's the main character, like she's pretty much reacting and making decisions on every page. And then I was like, okay, Amy, but my book's already really long. If I add more, she's like, that's fine. It's easier to cut down. We'll take stuff out, but just write it. And I was like, wow.
Oh no.
Oh no. No, I really was like, oh no. And I had to sit with that one for a long time. But it's something that, I mean, when I finished even as I was doing the edits, and once I got into the sort of flow and the swing of things as to, you know, I could tell when I needed to insert something and I didn't have to do it every single time, but, you know, in really important points, which was still like several times in the book. I mean, large parts of the book. But I remember then telling Amy when I submitted or when we were having our talk about when she had read that edit, I said this was like, it was one of the best critiques I'd ever received, specifically because I'm writing middle grade and, you know, we say 8 to 12. And so if there is an 8-year-old who can read, and it is slightly upper middle grade, but if there is an 8-year-old who, you know, can read the book, they might need just a little nudge in the direction that, you know, they need to go and to avoid them getting confused. And it also helped really flush out, you know, Ria's character, and I got to know her so much more than I did. And that's why I say that it added depth to the book, because we didn't change any plot point. I don't think we've changed a single plot point, or the arc or anything, but it just added such depth and dimension to the plot and the character. And I will always remember that, and that I hopefully have kept that in mind in the sequel. I mean, it's just draft 1, but that's also, I think, a great tip for any middle grade writer is to, you know, put that in a monologue, especially for your main characters, and then, you know, in revisions you can, you know, cut out and edit stuff that you think, you know, doesn't need to be there because it's too much. But that was a great tip.